Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 50. Hey, we've made it 50 episodes. I don't know if it's actually an accomplishment because we're still funding this by ourselves, but we made it 50 episodes. We'll get into it in the agenda. I'm your host, Will Spain, former long snapper for the March Madness bound Troy Trojans, March Madness bound Houston Cougars, and Osby Governors. Joined by my side, former offensive lineman with the Hendrix College Warriors, current man of electricity, Luke Wallman, and joined via Houston, Texas, former kicker for the Houston Christian Huskies and March Madness bound Troy Trojans, current nephew of Sunbelt Men's Basketball Coach of the Year, Sunbelt Men's Basketball Regular Season Champion, Sunbelt Men's Basketball Tournament, and March Madness bound head coach Scott Cross of the Troy Trojans. Chase Cross, guys. I believe this is the episode. This is March 16th, by the way. This is Monday. First four starts tomorrow on Tuesday. This is the episode we've been waiting for since we started this.
It is.
First off, happy 50th episode. Second off, it's time. Our full NCAA men's tournament breakdown. You've never seen an agenda so short if you watch the show, because that is the show today. Our 50th episode, we are designating fully to the greatest collegiate sporting event in the world, and arguably the greatest sporting event anyway in the world, the men's NCAA basketball tournament. No disrespect to the women. Next episode, we will give a bracket for that. And I think those are fun to fill out because I think you have a really good chance to go perfect.
Because a few years ago in high school, I was perfect through the round of 32.
Yeah.
And I was in the top 90% when I finished. I mean,
I actually
interesting.
Filled out a women's bracket when it came out. There's some decent matchups this year that I'm pretty excited to watch. And women's March Madness is elite, but we know where the betting viewership is, and that is on the men's side in March Madness. So let's kick it off, guys. We got to get right into it. It's the first four. UMBC against Howard. All right, I love this matchup for UMBC. 185 in the KenPom for UMBC, 207 to Howard. When this matchup was announced, I believe I sent a text not only to our group chat but to another group chat, and it was put the mortgage on whatever the spread is for UMBC.
And it has gone down from 2.5 to 1.5. You can get 1.5 at plus 100.
Listeners, gentlemen in the room, I am hands and knees begging you to take UMBC on a mortal mega max lock. Minus 1.5 against Howard. And let me tell you why. Not only is this UMBC probably the hottest mid-major team in the country, let's read off their past few score lines. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. Their entire conference tournament. KenPom is freezing on me. I'm not trying to mess up that. Guys, if you're trying to use KenPom in the next few days for your brackets, it is having a really hard time with the amount of volume it is getting. I have frozen. The amount of times I have frozen today on KenPom is unbelievable.
It's also probably because this man has 50 KenPom tabs.
No. It was freezing when I had one. And that was like, oh no, I'm about to open like 50 of these. It's going to be really bad. All right. UMBC beat Vermont by 15 in the championship game.
And I want to put something out there. Their best player.
The Vermont Homer. Homer.
But no, you have to add context.
The best player was out, yes, in the first minute.
Their best player got carried off the floor. So.
Okay. Continuing. By the way, they rattled off. They have not lost since January to Vermont. They won by 22 against UMass Lowell. They won by 15 against New Hampshire. They beat NJIT, who was like number 5 seed in this conference, by 39. Howard is in big trouble here, and let me tell you why. Howard turns the ball over. UMBC doesn't necessarily force turnovers, but I would rather have the team that does not force turnovers as well versus the team that turns the ball over 343rd in the country. UMBC shoots the 3-ball prolifically, while the Howard does defend it well. UMBC's defense completely outmatches Howard offense. I believe this will be a low-scoring game in the first half. Both teams both these teams are going to have nerves going into this game. I mean, you're in Dayton, Ohio. You're a standalone game. I'm so excited to watch this because I think UMBC wins by 20 plus. I just don't think they match up, or Howard matches up well at all against this UMBC team. Not to mention, I didn't think it'd be this big of a height differential, but on average, UMBC is an inch taller at every position than Howard. They move the ball just so much better than I've watched both these teams. Again, sad that I've done this, but I've watched both these teams plenty of times. I'm just so confident in this Retrievers team. It sucks that they're in the first four. I actually had them slot as a 15 seed, fringe 14. I think there are a lot of instances of teams like that in this bracket that you can kind of take advantage of, but just because of the teams they're playing, it's going to be tough for them. So I've got UMBC, and I think this is a runaway game for the Retrievers. I don't think it's even close. Luke, what do you take away from this first four matchup?
Yeah, usually in these first fours, especially if it's 16, you kind of have just the HBCUs battling it. But when American East is so much better than, are they in the MEAC?
MEAC, yeah, the MEAC was so weak this year.
It is so much better than the MEAC is. And that's another driving factor. I think UMBC is going to win at least by 5+. That's very generous. But they shoot the ball at an elite rate, like Will said. I mean, that's what you just got to hope for with some of these mid-majors is, can they shoot the three? And that'll carry them in these games. And they do play very good defense. Now, they do turn the ball over. Oh, that's Howard. Oh, yeah. That's on UMBC. Oh, my gosh.
Howard turns the ball over so much.
Yeah, 343 in the country in turnover percentage. So I do like UMBC to win this game.
Chaser.
Well, I think really when you look at it, the conference, the difference in the conferences is pretty strong between these two. Obviously, the MEAC was extremely weak. Howard kind of ran through it all year. But UMBC and the America East had a little bit tougher path. But what I really like about UMBC is they have three different scoring options they can go to. They've got Armstrong averaging 13.2 a game, King averaging 13.9, and then they have Valentine averaging 12. When you got three guys averaging significantly above 10 points per game, that means you have multiple scoring threats. We've seen that with different teams throughout the season. If you can score, if one of your guys is off, like some of these other March Madness teams where they have only one guy, and if that guy's not playing well, they're going to lose. This UMBC team can score with multiple different players. They shoot well from the floor. Their 3-point percentage is pretty good compared to the rest of the field, especially compared to Howard. And they don't turn the ball over as much as Howard, which the amount of possessions you have in March is super critical. So I really like UMBC to not only cover this one, but to absolutely blow Howard out and make a big statement.
First 11-11 in the first four is one that entices me a lot. And it's two teams that have played pretty poorly down the stretch between Texas and NC State. And I think it's because of their poor performances down the stretch, the reason why they're here in Dayton playing on a Tuesday night instead of in the actual field of 64. Texas, both these teams really struggle on defense. Let's just kick that off. Texas is 299th in three-point field goal percentage defense. They defend the two decently, but I mean, NC State is 287th in three-point field goal percentage defense. NC State does shoot the three ball much better than Texas does. However, Texas is just better in almost every metric offensive stat than NC State is, and Texas plays in the SEC, guys. I think the ACC is a damn good basketball conference, but I think the SEC is an upper echelon, a step ahead of the ACC. I do think we have a good matchup coming up here, and I think it'll come down to the wire. I think what matters to me is how Texas is able to play down the stretch. We've seen them kind of lose track of these games in the late second half. NC State, it's kind of polar opposites for them. They either dominate a game or they get absolutely ran out the building. I personally like Texas in this one. Luke, what do you think about this 11-11?
Oh, this is a nightmare because I kind of agree. NC State does get blown out, but they have blown a bunch.
That's what I'm saying. They're such a flip-floppy team.
I know, and they have blown a bunch of games. Like they had the Miami game down the stretch one. They got hammered by Louisville. They got hammered by Virginia. They had the Notre Dame game covered and won. They also had the Stanford game won, which they lost.
They've played so poor down the stretch.
I know, and I just have no faith in this NC State team after betting on them and losing so many times. Texas, I think their saving grace is their offense. They are a very good offensive team. Granted, they lost to a red-hot Ole Miss team in the tournament.
And I just had to kind of get that one off the board.
I know. Yeah. I don't think that really matters as much, but I think Texas is going to be able to hold on there. So,
Chaser, it's your Longhorns. How do you feel?
I actually disagree with y'all. I think NC State wins this matchup.
Wow. That
Um,
I mean, that just shook my
I mean,
brain.
it's
Holy
becoming
hell.
I think this is a really tough matchup for the Sean Miller Texas team. NC State, to be fair, has played better basketball than Texas has down the stretch. This is a Texas team that has lost 6 out of their last 7 games. They just lost to,
NC
granted, Ole
State.
Miss. What'd you say?
NC State has lost 6 of their last 7 as well.
I
No,
know, but they
5 of
at
their
least
last 6,
played
excuse
better
me.
in the tournament.
Yeah,
They played
they
better
beat
in the
Pitt.
tournament too.
Whatever.
Like I at least they were competitive. You don't go in to your first game like a game like they're a bubble team and they got outplayed by Ole Miss for
It's slightly
40
concerning,
minutes.
yeah.
So like I know NC State has struggled down the stretch too. Both of these teams haven't looked great, but you know, at the end of the day, I do like Copeland a lot for NC State. I think he's a good player. If he can set his guys up and really initiate that offense, I think NC State gets it done. I do like this Texas Longhorns offense a lot. I'm a big fan of Titus. He's looked really good throughout the year. And Swaim, hasn't played well down the stretch, but this was a guy that, we were looking at a potentially being a top 20, top 30 draft pick. So, we'll have to see how this game goes. I think it'll be tight, but I do think that Will Wade's NC State Wolfpack get this one done.
And I do want to say one more thing, kind of to back Texas a little bit more here. If you look at some of these losses, I mean, they lost to Stanford, Notre Dame.
The tournament team quality, when they play a
Yes.
quality tournament team, they get blown out.
Yes. And I mean, if you look at Texas' losses, they're losing the tournament teams. But I mean, for the most part, outside of that Ole Miss game, they're not getting blown out by 30. And I think like Oklahoma lost by 3. Arkansas, you got blown out. You only lost to Florida by, oh, I thought that was 6. That's 13. But you're not getting blown out by 30 like NC State.
Yeah.
I think it's a crapshoot, but yeah, that's my last little piece.
We got
I
moved.
mean, the last
4 games.
Texas game I watched front to back versus
Oh, it was-
Arkansas, they got absolutely
Yes.
dominated. And I know NC State is not this Razorbacks team that we'll probably get to here in a little bit, but I think NC State's just going to be a little too much. And Texas has a history of losing in the first 4. They just did last year against Xavier, which was a great game too. But I think NC State gets it done.
I didn't even think of that.
Just a quick touch on this Lehigh Prairie View game. I'm not very big on either of these teams. I'm just going to go with this is a 6 team out of the Patriot versus an 8 seed out of the SWAC. Like, I mean, it's tick for tack. Congratulations to Lehigh to making the tournament and Prairie View A&M. However, Pivamu is terrible offensively. I mean, horrible. 310 in offensive efficiency. Lehigh is terrible offensively. 290th. I'm not going to necessarily make a pick on this game. I do think Lehigh wins, but take the freaking under. I'll just say that. Anything to say on this one?
Oh, yeah, no, I will say this. I watched some of Lehigh this year, which, again, like we said, is kind of sad. They've got 2 guards who can actually play. They got Nasir Whitlock, who averages 21, and Hank Alvey, who's averaging 15. I mean, they've got some dudes. It's like Alabama on crack, and they just don't make anything. So,
Yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup for Pivamu. I do like Howard, the way they play a little bit more in Prairie View A&M for sure. I think this is a Prairie View team that kind of just snuck their way in the tournament. However, we saw with Alabama State last year, they can make it interesting in the first 4. Chase, anything on this one?
I actually disagree. I think Prairie View is going to get the win here. I do like this Lehigh team, but Prairie View had to beat a very good Bethune-Cookman team that
Yeah.
we all thought was going to roll into the tournament, and they're hot. Obviously, it doesn't matter once you get to March what you've done through the first 3 months of the season. I really like their guard duo of Foster and Horn. Horn and Joseph. My fault. They're both averaging around 20 points per game. Like I said, you got to have dudes in March. And looks like Prairie View has 2 guys that can score it pretty effectively. I know Lehigh, kind of same situation where they got into the tournament. This game's going to be very close. Pretty much the same caliber of teams, same caliber of offense, same caliber of defense. So it's going to go down to the wire. I don't think either one of these teams really will threaten that number 1 seed that they're going to get. But I think Prairie View A&M gets it done.
And no diss on HBCUs, but I mean,
they're just not good at basketball.
defense is just atrocious.
Yeah.
It's
All sports. I went and watched Texas Southern baseball this week, and to see my guy, and I mean it doesn't even feel like college baseball. So it's rough. It's rough. They got to get some funding.
I mean,
something.
funding
Well,
is desperate.
I
on
don't
that
think
one.
it is funding. It's mostly though from like what you see Theon and Ed Reed, it is how they run the athletic department is the big
Yeah.
issue in a bunch of
Oh,
the
yeah.
HBCUs.
Oh, I've
So
I've
much
got some stories
corruption.
about
So
that, but
much
that's another
corruption at HBCUs.
yeah, we can get to that in
Yeah,
another
another
episode. We
another
gotta get
episode
into
about the
Jason.
corruptions at HBCUs. Let's talk about our favorite, everybody's favorite, first four matchup. Miami, Ohio, who has one loss in the season, got into the tournament. We're not the last team in, by the way. They ended up being technically the last team in, but they said they were not the last team in. Playing SMU, guys, I I hate to say this, and Luke, I told Luke about it right before we recorded. I don't know if this one's even close.
No,
I
no.
I just think SMU is 15 times more athletic. I think Miami, Ohio kind of showed their true colors down the stretch, and they were struggling to beat these MAC teams. Yes, I think they should have gotten in. However, I think Boopy Miller may score 30 in this one. I do think SMU wins pretty comfortably here. And you hate to see it, but Miami, Ohio, yeah, they do shoot the ball very well. And the thing I'm slightly concerned if I'm an SMU fan is they're not very good at defending the shot. I mean, Miami was second in the country in 2-point field goal percentage, 22nd in the country in 3-point field goal percentage, when SMU's defense is 150 plus, 170 plus at both of those categories. However, it kind of goes the same thing. Not as much, offensive efficiency from SMU, but it does the same thing kind of flipped back when SMU's on offense and Miami's on defense. I think the athleticism takes over here, and I'd really like SMU to get it done. Luke, what do you think?
I think if this game is close, under 10 minutes, Miami, Ohio wins.
Yeah, I agree. If this game's close towards the end, I think the Red Hawks have enough momentum for their season, get it done. I just don't know if we get to that point.
But also, I do want to throw this out there, which it's like one of the only thing I did agree with Bruce Pearl on. SMU cannot win away from wherever Dickies. They cannot win away from Dickies. I mean, I think they won 5 road games this year. So that is like the only lingering thing with me. Yes, the matchup. SMU's got a 7-2.
You big guy, 7-2 guy.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that last name, but he's
Samit the
Turkey.
dog.
Yeah, I mean he's going to be a big issue for Miami, Ohio. I don't think there's a 7+ footer in the MAC. I could be wrong, but I really don't think there's a big guy like that with that sort of presence. Miami's just going to have to shoot lights out. That is the only way.
And they can.
They can. It's just I don't know. I'm so torn because I want Miami, Ohio to win, but like I do kind of think SMU can win.
And
but, like,
it's March, guys. Like, I
yes.
mean, what I had to do when, doing my analysis, filling out my, initial bracket. By the way, just want to let y'all know the brackets y'all see will not be the only brackets we fill out, obviously. It's just our initial analysis bracket, gut
reaction.
feeling. I had to think about who I would bet on for all these
Yeah.
matchups. Who would I put my financial, stability on? And that's a terrible word. Financial responsibility on the backs of. And Miami, Ohio makes me scared. Chase, what do you think about this one? I think we're kind of torn on it.
I'm not torn at all. You guys know how I felt about Miami, Ohio for a long time. I've consistently said that I thought Akron was the best MAC team. Miami, Ohio has escaped a lot of losses, and you got to give them credit for winning. Going 31-0 is absolutely incredible. Tremendous job by them. So I mean that's super commendable. But when you break it down, Miami, Ohio hadn't played anybody near the talent level of SMU. Boobie Miller is going to be the best player they will see all year without a shadow of a doubt. I think they're going to struggle with the physicality and the size. And this is an SMU team that without injuries would not be in the first 4. They would be closer to an 8 or a 9 seed. And I wholeheartedly believe that they're getting healthy. I believe before the tournament, their head coach actually said yesterday, we'll see if that's true. But this SMU team is really good. I mean, I watched them dominate a Texas A&M team that lose the game down the stretch and then win it in overtime. But this SMU team is really good. So I think they're going to roll, and I think it'll be 15 to 20 points.
Wow. Okay. Let's get to the main part of the bracket. Our first one comes up in the East region. Number 1 overall seed Duke playing 16 Siena. This is one of these matchups when it came out that I had a little bit of a red flag on. 1, Duke is banged up. 2, I had Siena, like I said, seeded as a 15, almost a 14. This is a Siena team that plays very well defensively, especially against the 2 ball. And I don't think Duke is necessarily this elite 3-point shooting team. They do most of the work in the paint. I mean, Siena has the 47th second best 2-point defense in the country. And the thing that really stood out to me was, as it's such a theme in March, tempo. Siena plays the 341st slowest tempo in the country. Now, do I think Siena's going to beat Duke? Absolutely not. Am I excited to watch this game? Yes, because I think they cover whatever the spread is due to I think this is going to be a very slow paced, very low scoring affair between Siena and Duke. I do not think they will run with Duke. I think they will play in their game plan, and I think they will try to essentially maneuver and facilitate Duke's interior to be able to make it closer than people think. Again, don't think Duke's on upset watch, but I do think this game is closer than most Duke fans would like it to be. What do you think about this first round matchup between 1 Duke and 16 Siena? Luke, then Chase.
Yeah, I'm just interested to see if they push Patrick Ngungba back. He's game time apparently. He's still been walking in a boot. That's going to be a big thing because if he's going to miss multiple rounds, it's going to be an issue because I like Boozer's great. Boozer can't play the 5 if they go up against a legit 5 because like
I think he sits for this game because Siena's so small.
yes, I think which I don't know. I've seen so much stuff. I've not seen enough to see if he's actually getting really healthy. I've just seen like, oh, he might play this weekend. He might come back in the Sweet 16. I don't know. Like he's still walking in a boot. It's just gonna be really interesting to see Duke in this tournament with the injuries with him and Foster. But I do think Duke will handle. I mean, Boozer should be able to dominate in the post against a very inferior opponent.
Chase.
Completely agree, and I actually think Caden Boozer's gonna have to have a really good tournament if Duke's gonna want to go far. We obviously saw him play pretty well in replacement of Foster in the ACC tournament. We'll see how it goes down the stretch for them. I like to see in a team a lot. I think if they had a better game, I mean Duke's just one of the best
Tough
teams.
draw.
And there's
Tough draw
no
for
front
them.
court. I mean, Duke's got a phenomenal front court, and that's what makes it hard for some of these smaller teams. Just the size difference and just the physicality up front. Siena, I think, could keep it close through the first half, but Duke's going to pull away. Their physicality is going to be too much. They're going to get too many offensive rebounds, and this game's going to be over. And but unfortunately, if Siena was a 15 or 14, we would be looking at their matchup a lot differently. But they just didn't get the right draw this year.
100% I agree. One of my favorite 8-9 matchups is between Ohio State and TCU here in the East. 8 Ohio State, 9 TCU. However, the reason it's one of my favorite matchups is because a lot of people are trendy on TCU. They've been a hot team. I disagree wholeheartedly. I think this game actually isn't even I don't think it's a close game. I think it's like an 8-9 point margin that Ohio State is going to be able to keep comfortably TCU at arm's length. TCU does not shoot the ball well at all. Plus 200 on 3-point field goal percentage in the country, 187th in 2-point field goal percentage. And this is something Ohio State does well, 19th in the country in 2-point, 58th in 3-point. Ohio State plays better defense than TCU does. TCU doesn't do anything explicitly great on defense. And not to mention, Ohio State is just so much taller than TCU. I mean, an inch and a half across, position on average. We saw this Ohio State team go toe-to-toe with Michigan. I think they ran the gauntlet of what that is, the Big Ten. They've looked really great down the stretch with big wins against Iowa, Indiana, Purdue. Again, a tight loss to Michigan. I'm big on this Ohio State team. I actually think they are threatening Duke in the second round, especially if the injuries are still lingering for the Blue Devils. So I really like this matchup for Ohio State. I just don't think TCU has enough to do either side of the ball, offensively or defensively, to give the Buckeyes a real threat. Again, it's March. Anything can happen, but I'm looking at this on paper. I'm looking at how I would bet it, and I love the Bucks in this one. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I think TCU with their center this season got turned on its head because their starting center right now is 6'4" or 6'5". And their best player, who was their starting center at the beginning of the year, tore his ACL against, was it Lamar, their first game?
I think it was Lamar.
And it just completely screwed their season up. But, I mean, Jamie Dixon is one hell of a coach. He has willed this TCU team back into tournament contention. But I just think Ohio State has a dude in Bruce Thornton, and he's a great freaking basketball player. One of the very rare cases of a 4-year player stay in the program, even with the coaching change. Both teams are hot. I just think Bruce Thornton, and I think he's just going to have a big march for this game. And I do think they play Duke close. It'll be very interesting to see.
Chaser.
I completely disagree with your take, Will. I think this TCU team is actually very good. I mean, considering what they lost earlier in the season, how they played down the stretch. Like we said, Bruce Thornton has been great for Ohio State all year, a 4-year guy. He's phenomenal, but I also at the same time, I really like this Jamie Dixon led TCU team. David Punch looked great in the Big 12 tournament. And objective, I mean, me personally, I know I'm probably a little bit biased, but I think the Big 12 is the best conference in basketball this
Oh, it's
season. And
100% the best
TCU
conference in
and
basketball.
and TCU won some big important games down the stretch, and they're like, and looked pretty impressive to me, coming down the stretch. This was a team that was on the outside looking in a couple weeks ago and has made a run to get back in. They beat a good Texas Tech team. I mean, this is a pretty solid TCU team. So, I think that this game really is truly a coin flip. I'm gonna go with TCU personally because my uncle coached there, Jamie Dixon. I think is a good coach and has done a good job at TCU over the course of his career. And I think David Punch is gonna have a really big game after a really good Big 12 tournament.
I just personally think Ohio State bullies them. I mean, just bullies them in the interior. But I mean, I respect what TCU's done. I do think they have the coaching edge, which matters in March. But I just think it's going to be way too much size for
And
TCU to
I
handle.
want to comment one more thing about your bullying. I don't think they bully them because, like Chase said, they did go through the Big 12. They went through Badunga with Kansas. They kind of handled him well. I do ultimately think Ohio State does win, though.
A trendy matchup, upset pick in March Madness is this matchup, 5 St. John's against 12 Northern Iowa. And something that stood out to me, even when picking the conference tournaments, guys, was how well Northern Iowa does in the metrics. And for a mid-major team, 72nd at the Ken Palm, which actually is somehow lower than where they started the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. They were in the 60s. However, I just don't see it. And I just don't. I just don't see it. They can't. No offensive rebounding for this Northern Iowa team. Tons of offensive rebounding for St. John's. Yeah, they're not much shorter, which is kind of surprising. Only about half a foot for Northern Iowa on average. However, St. John's is elite defensively, both on the interior and the perimeter. While, yes, Northern Iowa defends the three ball well, St. John's isn't a live and die by the three ball team. They're more interior play, fast break, move the ball, facilitated through edge of four. Now, something that does scare me, again, is the pace of play. 356 versus 636. If St. John's is able to, and I think they will, get up and be able to force Northern Iowa to play their style of basketball, I think this is one of these trendy upset picks that we see over social media throughout the years that this has been really covered on Instagram Reels, TikTok. That is an absolute blowout. I do not think Northern Iowa matches up well at all with St. John's, and I love the St. John's team in this East region specifically to make a really deep run, as you will see as I release my bracket. Luke, how do you feel about this one?
The pace absolutely scares me. It's not as much.
But it can go either way, can it not?
Yes, it can, but we have seen St. John's, and I think St. John's is great when they are on, but we've seen them in some of these games where they just don't make anything. And it's obviously the UConn game comes to mind, and then I think they had a game against Creighton maybe, or one of the other Big East teams earlier in the year, and it's like Drake last year. This is the exact carbon copy of Drake last year, except they don't have a start. So they're gonna say St. John's gonna go down. They miss a shot, UNI is going to milk that whole entire clock. And we also can't forget the Missouri Valley has done extremely well in some of these tournaments for the past few years. But the only reason I won't be picking them, free throws.
They're a terrible free throw shooting team.
Terrible free throw shooting team. And if you look in the past in March, all these mid majors that cannot shoot the free throw, they lose. So I do think St. John wins. I think I think if you and I might have played a different 5 seed, I might be picking them here. But I just don't think the styles don't really mesh well for you and I.
Chase.
Look, I think you're drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit. This has been a big pick I've seen all across social media today about UNI is going to upset St. John's, all this. We have to realize that this St. John's team just smoked UConn on national television
Obliterated
on Saturday to win, the Big East championship, and it wasn't even close. Zuby Ejiofor is one of the more talented, underrated players in the country. They've got the best coach, in my opinion, right now in college basketball, in Rick Pitino. They play phenomenal defense. They are criminally underrated. Should not be a 5 seed. I had them personally closer to the 3 line.
It's a 4 solidly.
Solid 4. Like they got absolutely robbed. This is not a 5 seed here. This is a really good Red Storm team. I like Northern Iowa. I actually had them going pretty far in their conference tournament, and they are a talented team that we've watched all year. They've performed well, but at the same time, I mean, they're not beating St. John's. This St. John's team, minus the UConn game, is if you take that UConn game out of the picture, this is one of the hottest teams in the country right now. So, St. John's back-to-back conference champions, back-to-back Big East tournament champions. I'm rolling with them all day.
Kansas against Cal Baptist. This is another, and the producer was one that really brought this to my attention. And I did some research online that this is a trendy pick to take Cal Baptist. Breaking news: Cal Baptist sucks offensively. I mean, they are terrible on the offensive side of the ball. 189th in three, 318th in 2-point field goal percentage. They do play a little bit slower. I mean, it's not like an atrocious difference. Kansas is elite on the defensive side of the ball. And if Darian Peterson shows up in any sort of capacity, this is a 20-plus point win for the Kansas Jayhawks. I've watched this Cal Baptist team way too many times. They have not impressed me once. They have not impressed me when we were leading up in the regular season. They didn't impress me in the conference tournament. They just kind of eke by their mid-major wins. They don't cover for crap against their mid-major teams. I don't like the Lancers at all. I think they are criminally overrated as a 13. I had them as a 14, fringe 15. I'm not big on Cal Baptist at all. I think this is honestly a smash spot for Kansas. Luke, you look like you agree.
Yeah, this is actually one of the very few teams I've not watched all year because anytime it's late night, I put on Hawaii. So I've not watched them. I did just vaguely look over their KenPom, and they can't score. I mean, especially against maybe they could score in conference a little bit, but like in the grand scheme of things, I mean, they should not. I would be very shocked.
Actually, I mean, this would be a really big shock for me if they won.
Yes, this would be like extreme. This would be like Princeton for me going to the Sweet 16 a few years ago. I mean, like this would be something like that. I just don't think.
And even Princeton had decent offensive metrics. Yes. I mean, Cal Baptist is not.
I just don't see this happening. I really don't. Kansas should walk all over them.
Chase.
I completely agree with y'all. We all see it the same way. Cal Baptist actually did play well in their in the WAC conference tournament. I got to watch a couple of their games, but they just don't measure up to this Kansas team at all. I think this Kansas team has arguably the best player when he's on in the country in Darian Peterson, but they're still big inside. They have decent depth pieces coming off the bench that can score. It just really at the end of the day, though, I mean, I just don't think Cal Baptist is going to be able to keep up with this Kansas team, and I don't think Cal Baptist really was a 13 seed. So Kansas got super lucky here. They're going to get a get-right game, honestly, where they can go and dominate a team and have good juices flowing into the next round. So I got Kansas here, and I got this one by a pretty wide margin.
One of my favorite games in the tournament. 6 Louisville, 11 USF, playing in USF's head coach's hometown, where his father, who has dementia, is going to be able to see him play. Guys, we haven't been big on Louisville all year. Now, metrically, they do look pretty solid, especially offensively, and okay on the defensive side of the ball. What I love is that both these teams just love to run and gun, and I think that plays into South Florida's favor, especially since South Florida doesn't necessarily like to shoot the three ball. They don't do it well when they do, but they also don't take that many three-point field goal attempts, like 100th in the country. Louisville does, and so I think when this run and gun kind of style for both these teams, Louisville does not play well away from home. We've seen them struggle playing down to competition as well, like when they went to SMU and SMU had 2 starters out and lost. I'm not necessarily as big on this USF team as some of these people are. However, they are 47th in the KenPom. We have to take note of that. They also they move the ball well, and they know how to offensive rebound. They are 7th in the country in offensive boards. They're going to get second chance points. I love the Bulls in my first upset pick, as we're talking about it, to take down Louisville. Again, this is a very popular upset. I hate doing that, actually. Mm-hmm. However, I think this is just one that metrically, in my mind, makes sense. I would bet on South Florida, and I encourage you to as well on the money line. Luke, how do you feel?
Yeah, no, I'm in your boat. Brian Hodgson is a Nato's disciple. And if you watch USF play, now granted, they don't shoot the three ball as well, like you said, but they've got some snipers. It's not like they're just.
They also have size in the interior.
Yes, it is a very weird combination. I mean, you don't see the athleticism that USF has usually from some of these mid majors. And I mean, they've got a few snipers outside that can hit the three. So it's not like they're just god awful at the three. They've got some guys who can shoot it very well. But this is a literal mini Alabama. And Pat Kelsey, for whatever it is, like Louisville is on the fringe of the trapezoid of excellence because of their metric. If you watch Louisville all year, they are not a trapezoid of excellence, even near the trapezoid of excellence team. They don't win big games. Pat Kelsey, great coach, for some reason just can't win games that matter. We saw that last year in March. Even though they got absolutely hoed by seeding, they still lost to a 9 seed. Like, I just don't see them winning this game. I think they end up losing. I just really don't see it happening.
Yeah, just we haven't been bought in Louisville all year, and why start now? Chase, what do you think about this 6-11?
Unfortunately, I see it the same way as y'all. This is going to be so clipped, and it's awful because I mean we're all three of us are picking this USF upset. It's one of the most popular ones in the country. But at the end of the day, I love what Brian Hodgson's done in his first year at USF. He was great at Ark State. Actually, I mean we hated him.
He was the one team we had to compete with.
One team, yeah, that was always gave my uncle's teams fits, but they run and gun, but they also play elite half court defense. They're gonna push Mikael Brown to his limits. This Louisville backcourt is obviously elite. But I do think this USF team is a really tough matchup for them just because of, the pace that they play at, their defensive physicality, and then Brian Hodgson's playing at home in his home state of in his home town of Buffalo. So, I mean, he's gonna have his family there. USF's gonna turn up. They're on a 12-game winning streak.
This has
right
one
now.
shining moment written all over it. It really does.
Yeah, I think USF gets this one done, and I think it's actually going to be a banger of a game, and it's going to go down to the end. But I got USF taking it.
Another Trinity upset pick for whatever reason. 3 Michigan State against 14 North Dakota State, and this is one that we will have a TikTok release in just a minute after I get done with this episode. I don't see it, guys. I just don't see it at all.
Nope.
I know our red flag with Michigan State is Jeremy Fears is pretty much their only go-to guy. But I think we can't pass up on Jackson Kohler. Can't be too tough on him. He's a 6'10" forward. He shoots the ball well. I mean, he even shoots 39.4% from outside the arc. I mean, this is a just complete size mismatch, 2.5 inches on average. Not to mention, North Dakota State is very apt to giving up offensive rebounds. And Michigan State is really good at getting offensive rebounds. They're also just not allowing offensive rebounds. I don't think North Dakota State has any of the boxes that takes me for a matchup or ticks any of my boxes that are needed for a big upset. They don't shoot the 3 ball necessarily any much better than Michigan State does, and they don't defend it necessarily any much better. They don't shoot the 2 ball well. They're not a very good free throw shooting team. They're way outsized. And the one thing that kind of concerns me a little bit is the turnover margin. I think North Dakota State may turn over Michigan State a little bit. However, I do think Michigan State just completely outmatches North Dakota State, and we'll cruise through this one for Sparty. Luke, what do you think about little brother?
And I can tell why some people want to pick it, just because Michigan State down the stretch has been, even though they lost really bad to Michigan. They lost to UCLA in the first round. I mean, that's kind of, I think, what people are going off that red flag, and they don't necessarily, outside of Fears, they don't have anybody they can go to. Yes, Kohler's good. Kohler can't create his own shot. Those 2 big guys are good. They just cannot create their own shot. And I think this is going to be very telling for Michigan State because it's going to force Izzo to next year have to go to the portal. He's had all of these guys for 3-4 years plus. He's going to have to go to the portal if they want to end up getting back to that success. So I do think Michigan State rolls, but it'll be very interesting this tournament for them.
Chase.
I completely agree. I think Michigan State's just too big for North Dakota State. Credit to North Dakota State for making the tournament, but this is also a team that lost to UTEP, who was one of the worst teams in Coosa this year, and they lost. North Dakota State lost to them in pretty convincing fashion when UTEP hadn't had a single Division I win at that point. So been out on North Dakota State since then. I know that as the season goes on, they can improve, but I think this Michigan State team is just too good, and this is not really going to be that close either.
I think this is a very enticing 7-10 matchup just due to the injuries UCLA has suffered. UCLA, the 7th seed, playing 10 UCF. What came down to me is UCF really does play defense well, and UCLA does play great offense. I mean, they're 16th in the country at 3-point field goal percentage, and UCF defends it at 187th. They are literally the only set they're under 200 in the country on defense is 3-point field goal percentage and offensive rebounding. They don't allow many offensive rebounds. Their efficiency is okay at 101, but I mean, they're just not a very good team, in my opinion. They've really struggled down the stretch. UCLA's red hot. Donovan Dent is cleared to play for the first round. I think this is a pretty good win. I think this gives UCLA on a run that I think they may make, and I like the Bruins in this matchup. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I just think UCF, it's not that UCF that we saw that beat Texas Tech earlier in the year. They have completely struggled down the stretch. Now, they did beat Cincinnati in the Big 12 tournament on a buzzer beater in overtime, but UCLA has also played very good basketball outside of losing at Minnesota, which, if you do look at most of their losses, it's when it's all conference realignment bullcrap. They have to travel and play an 11 a.m. game that's like, what is it, an 8 a.m. game their local time. And I mean, that does definitely struggle with them a little bit because they lose a bunch on the road. And I think that's part of it where they're having to go from UCLA to Michigan, then back out to UCLA for the next game on Monday or something. But they have been playing extremely well. They beat Nebraska, USC. They beat Michigan State in the conference tournament. They only lost to Purdue by 7. I think we're all going to kind of be the same on this, and I hate it because this is definitely – I hate these 7-10s because I think UCLA can really go to the Elite Eight. I really do. But it's just the fact that they could also.
Oh, no,
lose
we're
to
setting
UCF.
ourselves to get up clipped.
Yes,
for
we
sure.
are. It's the fact that they could lose to
100%.
UCF in this first game.
Let me guess, Chase, you like UCLA?
I like UCLA too. I like UCLA down the stretch. I don't think UCF has been playing as good a basketball. Like Luke said, this isn't the same team that we saw beat Tech earlier in the year. They've slowly started kind of a downward progression as the season's gone on. Yes, they did beat Cincinnati in the tournament, but I don't think that they played their best down the stretch. UCLA is getting healthy at the right time. They're playing really good basketball right now. This tournament, obviously, I wasn't super high on UCLA until probably these last couple weeks, and the tournament kind of can change my mind on them a little bit. They looked really good in the Big Ten tournament, and they're the only team. Like, I thought they played a better game against Purdue than even Michigan did in the finals. So, I like this UCLA team a lot, and I think they'll make a run in, like Luke said, to at least the Sweet 16.
Final game in the East region is UConn and Furman. I think we can keep this one pretty quick and simple. Furman just does not play offense well, and while they do play decent defensively, they don't really turn anybody over. And I think UConn will completely outsize them, completely outmatch them on the perimeter. And I think this is going to be a pretty chalk 2-15 game where I think UConn may even cover whatever large spread they are having to cover. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, Alex Wiggins, freshman. This is a game that will basically say, where am I going to play next year against UConn? He's been their best player for Furman. I think he has a big game. I just don't think it's enough.
Chase.
I agree. I got UConn moving on, but I think Furman's actually going to give them a game. Furman's one of the taller teams in this tournament and one of the taller mid majors. They're getting healthy too at the right time. They're obviously Alex Wiggins is playing well. They're missing one of their best players from last season. I forgot his name, but he's coming back. And they're gonna play some good basketball against UConn. I think they'll keep it close for the majority part of the game, but I do think UConn edges it out in the end.
Troy beat Furman. I love mentioning whenever Troy beats these tournament teams. Moving on, West Region. We're all fins up. I mean, we're all teams fins up. We all want to see them do it. And they are a really good defensive team. I just want to put that out there. They do defend the 3-ball, 62nd in the country, 129th on the 2. Yeah, but Arizona should absolutely murder LIU. I mean, they shouldn't even be close. Luke, I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, it would be really funny because Arizona in the past has been really prone to lose these first round games, but I do think they roll LIU.
Chase.
This is a different Arizona team than past Arizona teams. They are really good. They can score at all 3 levels, and I mean, it's just gonna be too much for the Sharks. Even though I do love the fins up.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. We are teams fins up. I'll be rooting for LIU for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting 8-9, one that tickles my palate here between the Big East and the rare lone Mountain West bid. Villanova playing Utah State. I think this one has Utah State written all over it. Not only are they prolific on the interior, but they're also a decent 3-point shooting team. Villanova doesn't defend either very well. They also get offensive boards, which Villanova does as well. But I think it's just going to be a matter of who is able to sink more shots between these two teams. Very even on height, very and one thing actually that stood out to me, I was about to say, but one thing actually stood out to me is the Utah State's just way deeper. I mean, they are 36 in the country, like 72nd in the country in bench minutes when Villanova's 259th. I think that plays a role here. I think Utah State's deeper. I think this Utah State team is very prompt for to end the Mountain West woes in the conference tournament. I also think they're way underseeded. I think they were at 8-7, not a 9. And I thought Villanova was more of a 9-10, not an 8. So that's kind of how I see this one going. I like the Aggies. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm the same. And also, I do want to throw this little out there. They're having to go to California, which Utah to California, not that bad. Going to Pennsylvania or
It's going to
whatever.
be a very pro Utah State crowd, I think.
Yes, and their fans are insane. They're going to travel. But I do like this Utah State team. Nova is very prone. Like, obviously, they shoot the ball very well. They hit like 23 threes earlier this year in a game. If they don't make the three ball, they're screwed. They don't really do anything on offense outside of shoot the three, which they do very well. But there have been games in the Big East where I've watched that they struggle and they lose games they shouldn't. So I do think Utah State, also with the underseeding, their coach even came out and said it. I do think Utah State, I like to win this game.
I think they're going to be very poised and very inspired to win this game against Villanova, especially given their seeding. Chase, what do you think about the 8-9?
I think Utah State has been the best team in the Mountain West all year. Absolutely dominated that conference. That is historically the best mid-major. I mean, I don't even know if we can really. I guess they're borderline Power Five, borderline mid-major, top mid-major basketball conference. They dominated it this year, inside and out. Villanova, they're good. They just don't have a really significant win outside of the win from December against Wisconsin. They haven't really beaten anybody else. Lost to BYU, Michigan, lost both their games to UConn and St. John's. So, they haven't really beaten an elite team. I think this Utah State team was criminally underrated. MJ Collins and Mason Falisev are both two elite players. And, I think that, Utah State, they're just criminally underseeded. Like, I just don't think that they're a 9. I think they're closer to a 7, and I think that they're gonna dominate Villanova and get into that matchup against Arizona.
Wisconsin, one of the most prolific three-point shooting teams in the country, playing High Point, another great three-point shooting team. Has shootout written all over it. Again, this is a trendy pick, guys. However, Wisconsin is, again, 2.5 inches on average taller than High Point. They are going to get so many second chance possessions, in my opinion. And I said High Point's a great three-point shooting team. Historically, they are not really this year though. Mid hundreds in Division One and three-point shooting. They have that one guy that all he does is shoot threes. Yes, there is certain aspects of this that tick my box of like this could be a big upset. This isn't the 12 seed I see winning, though. I think there'll only be 112 that moves on. This isn't the one I see winning. Also, Wisconsin can literally score 15 points in 2 minutes. I mean, they are able to just catch fire, just light it up from downtown. We saw that against Michigan. Michigan is one of the best teams in the country, and they've played them close every game they've played. They've even beaten Michigan. I think this is one of these trendy picks that is completely off, the wire, and I love Wisconsin. I would love to get clipped here because it's not going to happen. Luke, what do you like about this 5-12?
I want to drink the Kool-Aid again for the second year in a row, but I just can't. The way that Wisconsin, like if the shooting roles were kind of reversed, I'd be so more towards High Point, even with the height and everything. But High Point's game this year is they're going to try and turn you over and run with you. And they'll still shoot the three ball solidly, but they're going to try and like get layups. And Wisconsin, I mean, they got Nolan Winter coming back, who's another one of their stretch bigs. I mean, Wisconsin, it sucks that them and Arkansas have to meet in the round of 2. It's great, but it also sucks. I think both of those teams could go to a possible Elite 8, Sweet 16 further. I mean, those are two really great teams, and I'm very excited for that matchup.
Chase.
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on this one, and I'll tell you why. I like this High Point team a lot.
You're an idiot.
They've only got 4 losses all year, 15-1 in conference. I mean, I know what Wisconsin's done. Wisconsin, though, I just don't trust them in March for whatever reason. I think High Point's going to get out and they're going to try to run and they're going to play very fast. I know Wisconsin can shoot the three really well, but we've also seen periods down the stretch that they go on really long scoring droughts. And like you said, they can also score 12 points in a minute. So you don't really know what you're going to get with this Wisconsin team, but they also have shot themselves out of a lot of games. And, I like this High Point team. They have no real pressure in this one because everybody's picking Wisconsin. So, I think High Point could come in and shock a lot of people and get the win here.
Right. Oh, go ahead, please.
No, I definitely think the steal thing is going to be big because Wisconsin, like, I get they don't turn it over, but I feel like if you rattle this Wisconsin team, it's very like I think
Yep.
Illinois did it earlier in the year where they just kind of jumped on them and immediately Wisconsin was like, oh crap. Because Wisconsin, like, let me pull up their 3-point percentage. At the beginning of the year, they shot it terribly. I know they're 53rd. They're not a bad. They're a good 3-point shooting team, but they do have games where they just do not make a thing. So that
Yep.
does scare me for Wisconsin because it's kind of like a poor man's Alabama
Yep.
essentially.
100%. And that's exactly why I don't trust Alabama. We'll get into that in a
Yeah.
little bit here too, but that's another reason I'm not super high on this Wisconsin team because it's live by the three, die by the three, and I think this High Point team can cause them some trouble and make it a little nerve wracking for them.
Number 4, Arkansas against 13 Hawaii. The way I see this one, guys, is in order to be an upset, you have to be able to play offense at a pretty prolific rate, not just play good defense. Hawaii's pretty solid on defense, 29th and 22nd in 3-point and 2-point percentage defending, respectively, and 43rd in adjusted efficiency. However, Arkansas is 6th in offensive efficiency. They don't turn the ball over. They shoot the 3-ball well. They shoot the 2-ball well. They are relatively same height, so no height difference there. But Hawaii is just they're 300th in 3-point percentage shooting in the country. We've literally seen them in their championship game against UC Irvine go stretches without scoring, and that terrifies me as a mid-major when you go stretch without scoring. Arkansas big. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it could be interesting because this kind of reminds me, like I saw some dude say it, and I'm like, oh, I can kind of actually resonate this. When Yale played, now granted, when Yale played Auburn, Yale had a dude. Hawaii doesn't have a dude, but Yale just hunkered down, played really good defense, and was able to score enough to beat Auburn. And I think I don't think that happens here, but this is like it's like the little thorn. I just am like I could definitely maybe see it just because of if they have size for a mid major. It's not like they're tiny and like 6'7" at center. So it'll be very interesting in my opinion. I do think that Arkansas will end up covering whatever the spread is, but it's just going to be interesting in my opinion.
Chase.
I think Arkansas absolutely dominates this
Thank
game.
you,
I
me
know
too.
this is another one that people are kind of wanting to pick Hawaii. Darius Acuff has been on an absolute tear. Arkansas
This
is
team
red
just won
hot.
the SEC.
They just won the SEC. They're not a 4 seed. I don't some of these picks that the committee did, I don't understand some of the 3 seeds. I don't understand some of the 4 seeds. I I I mean I just don't get it. Arkansas has looked great down the stretch. This is a really good basketball team. Darius Acuff is playing himself into a top 5 NBA draft pick. He is phenomenal. This guy's a dude. In any other year, he would be going first overall. I mean, we are blessed to watch a ton of great freshmen in this tournament, but I think this Arkansas team is actually built really well around them. They've got the coaching edge. I think Arkansas dominates Hawaii.
BYU would get the winner of NC State and Texas. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. I think there is going to be a first 4 team that wins. I do not think it's this one. I think Texas and NC State have played way too poorly down the stretch. AJ DeVance has really turned it up as we've gotten towards late February, early March. They do pretty much everything well, efficiently, offensively. Struggle a little bit on 3-point defense. However, I don't think either of these two teams shoot the 3-ball necessarily too well to overcome that. As far as an 11 seed beating a 6, I love BYU to move on here with AJ DeVance being the potential number 1 overall pick in the NBA. Luke, what do you think about this one?
AJ DeBanza. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
short and sweet for this matchup. I know could be trendy to take this 11 play in, but I just think BYU is way too much. Chase, what do you think?
I'm gonna disagree with you here. BYU is very hot and cold. Obviously, they played a little bit better down the stretch. AJ DeMansa is phenomenal, but here's my logic: a first 4 team always makes it into the round of 32. I don't think it's gonna be. I don't think SMU or Miami, Ohio can beat Tennessee.
See, I am
So
reversed on this. I'm
I
absolutely
know you're
flipped on
reversed on
this.
it. I think this Tennessee team is actually better than BYU. BYU was a 10 seed, and I know that they played well down the stretch, but BYU was a 10 seed in the Big 12, let's not forget, and didn't have the greatest stretch of conference play. Obviously, AJ DeMansa is phenomenal, but I think both Texas and NC State can beat BYU. I'm not saying they will, but I think they can, and I think it's more likely than Miami, Ohio, or SMU to beat Tennessee. So that's why I think that Texas or North Carolina State can win against BYU.
I also do think a big thing, not with the game, just first 4 in general. I'm not making a first four pick over a 6 seed until I actually watch the first four because, like, if
Oh no, a
Texas,
team could catch fire in the first
if
four, and that
Texas
Yeah,
matters.
no,
comes
this is
out
just
here
our
and
early
lights
preview.
the earth on fire, can be dabbled with Texas, but like, or Miami, Ohio, or SMU comes out here and lights the earth on fire. I can think about it, but it's just hard to tell until you see Dayton.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
think this
just
is a
go.
complete mismatch, guys. I know Gonzaga hadn't been as prolific as they have
No,
from three
Gonzaga's
ball,
dominating this one.
as past years. I don't think this one's any close. I don't think Gonzaga couldn't have gotten
No.
a better draw from a 14 seed than Kennesaw State. A Kennesaw State team who's missing their best player, got
For
through the
gambling issues.
for gambling issues, got through the Coosa tournament, a weak Coosa this year. I thought they were more of a 15 seed, if not even maybe a 16. The Zags got a freebie. They roll.
They got a
They
freebie.
got a freebie. You agree, Chase?
100% freebie. I think Gonzaga rolls.
Luke, you agree?
Zach's cover.
I mean, no matter what it is, they can give me 29.5. I think Gonzaga wins this game by that much. I think this is literally the equivalent of them playing Pepperdine in the West Coast Conference. I don't see anyone picking Kennesaw State here. I think the Owls are not very good, and I think this will be a pretty brutal matchup, pretty brutal ending their season against the Gonzaga Bulldogs. This is an exciting 7-10 matchup, guys. Miami against Missouri. I'll be honest. I've just been very big on Missouri all year. Not only, yes, they don't always win the big games. However, like we saw in Kentucky, they're able to climb themselves back in, and they are competitive in every big contest they have. Miami looked great in the ACC tournament. They were very athletic. However, I did not like how they got absolutely dismantled by Virginia in the semifinals. Yeah, Missouri did lose to Kentucky in their second game. However, I mean, Missouri does shoot they shoot the ball well. In the interior. Also, they're okay on the 3-point line. Miami doesn't defend the three for anything, but neither does Missouri. I think this really comes down to who has had the more battle-tested season, and then who may be a little bit taller. Missouri's the third tallest team in the country. I think they're going to be able to use this as their advantage. They're going to be able to shut down Miami's, drives into the interior of the, court. They're going to be able to shut down the paint. And I think Missouri actually is very apt to get the SEC a win over an ACC here. A team that Miami has a lot of people bought in after the ACC run, looking very good against Louisville. But I think Missouri is a team to watch out for in this tournament. And I love MIZZOU. Luke, what do you think about this matchup?
I think Miami is going to be able to eke this out. I think this is a very good team. And I know we're talking about height. I mean, first team All ACC and Malik Reneau. I mean, average 18 and 6. I mean, him and Mark Mitchell are going to go to war in the paint. And I think Miami's going to be able to win. I think I'm going to kind of home a little bit for my boy Trey Jonathan, who ended up transferring out of Michigan last year. I mean, he did great things in the tournament for Michigan. He won them the Big Ten. He won them the UC San Diego game or UC whatever UC they played last year.
San Diego, you're right. Yeah.
I mean, he won them that game. I think he is a proven winner, and I also like Jay Lucas as the head coach, having sitting at Duke forever. Now, again, I'm kind of doing what we did with Ole Miss versus who are we talking about, or whoever, Texas.
Yeah.
I'm kind of just wiping that. I think that was just a bad game they played. I think Miami's able to win this game.
Chase.
I completely agree. I think Miami is going to beat Missouri. I know you're high on Missouri, but Missouri down the stretch, I mean, they had a couple good months there. And I actually was pretty high on Missouri, but how they finished the season, obviously not as high on them. Miami had a really good ACC tournament run. I think Virginia is a lot better than people give them credit for. We saw what they did against Duke in the final. So I think this Miami team can get it done against Missouri. But I do think this will be a good game.
Purdue will absolutely kill Queens. It is very unfortunate for Queens. Purdue is firing on all cylinders. Queens really has nothing to offer up. They are literally bottom 25% in the country in every defensive metric you could possibly measure. It's bad. I think this one's bad. I think, yes, Queens actually does play decently offensively, especially shooting the three ball. I think they'll actually be close for like the first 10 minutes, and then we're going to see Purdue just really pull away, especially with, God, who's the big man for
Kaufman Wren.
Kaufman Wren and the
Oscar Clough.
Oscar Clough. Dude, Oscar Clough is going to make a fool out of Queens in this game, and I think it's a bad matchup for the Royals. I really would have liked to see Austin be in this spot. I thought they would have competed a little bit more. But, no for Queens. I think Purdue rolls. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Purdue rolls, but I do think it's kind of interesting just to say Purdue has had really bad first-round luck in the tournament as of late. So I don't think it happens. I just think it'd be hilarious if it did. So
Fair enough. Chase.
I think this is the most I'm kind of mad with the bottom of this bracket how they gave Gonzaga and Purdue such good games when there's some I think better teams than both of them. You know, Purdue's obviously been red hot coming out of the Big Ten tournament, but you know they get a very favorable matchup. I think they absolutely dominate Queens, and I think this bottom half of the West region is, I mean, it is wide open for Purdue or Gonzaga to take it.
Over to the Midwest. Michigan will play the winner of Howard and UMBC. I believe we are all on the blue here. However, watch out if it's UMBC. I'm just going to let you know right now. Just not only historically, 16-1 being UMBC, but they shoot the ball really well, and you never know who can catch fire. But yeah, I mean, Michigan's winning this, Luke.
yeah, I think size.
Yeah, that was really my deterrent.
Yeah.
They just literally can lob it tomorrow the entire game, and I think it's over.
So yeah, I'm not gonna get on my spiel. I'm pissed they lost. It's whatever. Michigan should win.
By maybe 40. Chase.
I think it'll be a big number, regardless if it's UMBC or Howard. I think Michigan's really good. They'll have a wake up call after that loss to Purdue. I think they're going to be just fine. I think they dominate UMBC or Howard.
The 8-9 matchups this year, guys, are elite. Georgia St. Louis has
Mhm.
everything we want out of an 8-9. St. Louis has stumbled kind of across the finish line in the A10. However, they are the number 2 3-point shooting team in the country. And that's something Georgia doesn't necessarily defend well. St. Louis does defend the three ball well, and they defend the interior well. I think this is a really good matchup for St. Louis as an 8-9. Yes, Georgia can catch fire with Jeremiah Wilkinson, Blue Kane, or I'm not even going to try to pronounce the first name, Cyril, their forward on the interior. Yes, they could give him problems, but I think they've got Robbie Avila to offset Cyril, who's only 1 inch taller. It's not like they have a big size mismatch. I think even St. Louis, yeah, is a little bit bigger than Georgia, which is funny from an A10 to SEC team. I love St. Louis in this matchup against the Georgia Dogs. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of point back that Georgia is not a great road team. They're obviously not SMU bad, but I think I'm gonna just roll with St. Louis just because I don't. Sometimes Georgia, I don't know. Georgia's weird. Georgia's one of those weird teams because yes, you go out and you beat say like Bama, but then you only beat Mississippi State by like 4, and I'm like that should not correlate because like no disrespect, State's fucking awful.
State's terrible.
So,
Terrible.
like, I mean, you only beat them by 4 is pretty, like, crazy to me. I don't know. I think this is like you said, the 8-9s are great. I'm just kind of leaning St. Louis because I want it to happen. I'm manifesting this.
And I do want to say this. I think St. Louis is a very bad matchup for Michigan to see in the second round, the way they shoot the ball. But, Chase, what do you think about this 8-9?
I actually disagree with y'all. I think St. Louis has stumbled down the stretch, especially in the A10.
But Georgia says, has
Um,
not I?
I mean, Georgia though plays in the SEC and has actually played some really good games. I mean, they dominated, granted at home, but they have beaten some good teams this year. Like they've beaten Kentucky, and they've beaten another tournament team in Texas by a lot. They've beaten Alabama. They've beaten Auburn. I mean, this is a good Georgia team that I think, you know, is not necessarily playing their best basketball either, but I think they're a little bit better than St. Louis, and they're definitely more battle tested.
5-12. Texas Tech, who's absolutely injury riddled against a 12 Akron team, very trendy pick for Akron. I think the name of the game is if Christian Anderson doesn't play, and I don't think he is going to. And if he does, he will not be at 100%. I love Akron in this matchup. Not only are they 14th in the country in 3-point percentage, they are also 12th in 2-point percentage, 8th in effective field goal percentage. Yes, Texas Tech does defend the three ball very well and in the interior. However, Akron plays with pace. Texas Tech does not. I think Akron is going to be able to run and gun their way to a win for our first 12/5 and only 12/5 in my mind. Upset for the Zips. I think Texas Tech is way too injury riddled. I think Akron is going to be able to take advantage of that. They are able to score in bunches. They are able to facilitate the interior. I think this is a great matchup for Akron at the 12, and I love the Zips over the Red Raiders. Luke, you're smiling at me. I think you might agree.
I am. The Texas Tech injuries, like you said,
If this is a healthy Tech game,
Oh, they roll.
they roll, but they're not.
They absolutely roll. Now, granted, Akron did not look great in the MAC final. They did in the MAC tournament, just not in the final. But I think this is going to be an Akron team that, like a few years ago, they almost won their tournament game. I think a few years ago, they only lost by like 7 or 8 as a 14 because they caught absolute fire from 3-point.
This is a team that only has 5 losses.
Yeah, and I think
1 to Troy, by the way.
and they shoot the 3 ball extremely well. I mean, they shoot it better than Miami, Ohio. I just think the guard play, they got 2 guards who are absolute dudes who are going to be able to carry them in this tournament. I think Akron is going to upset Texas Tech.
Chase, how do you think about your new school?
I mean, okay. Y'all know how big I've been on Akron all year long. I've said it for months now that they're the best team in the MAC. I've stood on that. We obviously saw them win the tournament. I love this Akron team, and unfortunately, Tech is just so injured right now. It's really sad to see because they had a lot. This is a Tech team that probably could have made a really deep run in this tournament, but I mean, their top 2 players are banged up. I mean, obviously Toppin's out for the year, and then Christian Anderson. I mean, we don't even know if he's going to play against Akron. So, and those 2 guys, they were heavily reliant on them through most of the season. I mean, when Anderson's taken out of the game against anybody, Tech just almost becomes one-dimensional. They start jacking up threes from everywhere. Now, I do think because this is a trendy pick, I do think this game is going to be a lot closer than people think. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, Akron's going to run away with this, but I do think Akron gets the win here. And I hate to do this because, I mean, we're going to get clipped if we're wrong on all these, but man, I like Akron a lot in this matchup too.
And another thing to point out, Tech is not a deep team.
No, they're not.
They don't go to the
No,
bench.
not at
So, like, that's another thing. If you're losing your 2 top starters and have to bring up 2 guys from the bench
They've
already,
just been super unlucky this year, and that's just what
'Cause
you have to chalk it up to.
I think
'cause,
they only play
I
7.
mean, yeah,
Alabama, the 4 seed in this region against 13 seeded Hofstra, a very, very, very trendy upset pick, especially after Aiden Holloway got arrested today.
Yeah.
I do not care. And I understand people may like, oh, wow, Hofstra's actually kind of battle tested. You know, they've played some decent non-conference opponents. Bama is going to shoot the 3 all over this Hofstra team. Hofstra does not defend the 3 ball necessarily great, 78th in the country. They do defend the 2 ball well. However, they don't create turnovers. They're not a good 2-point shooting team. They kind of heavily rely on the 3. It's just Bama is getting little Bama in this, and I think that's exactly what Bama wanted to get is little Bama. LeBaron Fallon may drop 40 in this game. They have a major size misadvantage. They don't have to worry about rebounding on the interior in this game. I love Alabama to roll Hofstra, and I think people are way too big on Hofstra. I think this is one of those trendy upset picks that everybody gets shot down. It's not even be close. Give me the Crimson Tide. Luke, what do you think?
Oh, I'm totally going to manifest Hofstra here. I want to see Hofstra win. I think this is just like last year or was it last year when they played Charleston? This is Alabama.
Alabama played
Charleston last year,
No,
right?
it was even worse. NJIT.
Okay, it might have been whenever they played Charleston in the tournament, they got matched up with mini Alabama. I think it might have been 2 years ago when they got Pat Kelsey's Charleston.
Yes.
I think, I mean, honestly, over. Just
Yeah,
go over.
go over.
But I really want to see Hofstra win. I think they shoot the ball at an elite level. It's whoever is going to catch fire in this game because I've seen Bama go stretches or they just Ole Miss. I get we're wiping all this Ole Miss stuff. They didn't hit anything in that game. And I mean, Aiden, you're taking 17 points out of your lineup. Now, granted, you got to go play Hofstra, who beat some teams. They beat Cuse, they beat Pitt, lost to 4 at UCF. They beat a Penn, who's a tournament team.
Yeah.
But I really just hope Hofstra can win. I think they can win too with their guard play with Cruz Davis. I mean, I'm going to go with Hofstra. I'm going to go with the trend. I'm going to pick Hofstra to win.
Jace, I think you may be on the same page as me, right? I think Hofstra's a
100% on the same
freaking
page, too.
idiotic pick that is trying to be manifested
I
by
do
Bama
too.
haters.
It's just a Bama hating. Like, for whatever reason, Alabama is hated by a lot of people across the
I
country.
mean, I
for-
hate Bama, but
and
I'm
I
not
don't really know,
dumb.
maybe
I
it's
couldn't
just-
imagine why everybody
I mean,
hates
maybe it's the
Alabama.
fact that they played the G League guy, but I mean, this Alabama team is elite. This is a top 15 team that we've seen all season. Hofstra, yes, can shoot the 3 well, but man, this LeBaron Fallon's going to go off for 40. Alabama's going to roll. They're going to smoke
score 100
Hofstra. I mean,
points.
they're too good. They're too good.
Sticks Tennessee against the winner of Miami High and SMU. I'm just not big on this Tennessee team guy at all. I think Nate Abent, who is their best player, that's their go-to guy. He has not been playing well down the stretch. Jacoby Gillespie would have to have a really step up against either one of these teams. Either one of these teams coming off of a game, either going into the first four, they get a game under their belt, they get a tournament game under their belt, they're getting rhythm. And we saw a Tennessee team that probably should have lost to Auburn, had to go on a deep run late in the second half to get that one, and then just got completely outplayed again by a small Vanderbilt team. I don't think Tennessee is going to be able to do anything at all in this game, and I love whoever comes out of here from the 11 seed against the Vols. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I like I said earlier, I have to watch the first four because if both these teams come out and struggle, I will probably lean Tennessee. But if they both play well and it's a great game, I'm probably going to lean to the 11 because Tennessee, like you said, Nate Ament's been battling injuries. Tennessee's just been battling like not major, but they've been all lingering. They've been kind of hurt here and there. It's not the same Rick Barnes team that we've seen.
It's Barnes and March.
Yeah, and it's Barnes and March. I completely forgot about that. But this is not the same defensive Rick Barnes team that we see year in and year out. It's just I feel like this is a very below average Rick Barnes defense. And Tennessee's, I don't think they're very good. And like you said, Rick Barnes in March. So if the 11 shows up, I'll go with them. If they both look like crap in the first four,
I agree.
I'll probably go Tennessee.
Chase.
I disagree with y'all. I think that this is honestly the best matchup that Tennessee could have hoped for on the 6th line. Quite honestly, if they'd ended up with the other first 4 teams, I think NC State or Texas beats Tennessee. But that being said, SMU, I really don't know what to make of them over the last month. I think that they're probably going to beat Miami, Ohio by a lot, but I just am not sold on this SMU team enough to beat a solid Tennessee team. Like, I don't think this Tennessee team is necessarily that much better than SMU, but I do think that they have enough to get it done. And I think Nate Ament has enough to just get by either Miami, Ohio, or SMU, which I ultimately do think it'll be SMU. But I think Tennessee will actually get it done in this matchup, and it's just favorable for them. I'm not high on this Tennessee team either, but I think the bubble was just so poor this year that it's kind of going to be a product of that.
Just last thing to speak on that bubble thing. Do not expand the tournament. This is the perfect
Yes,
reason.
it is. It's the perfect bracket. It does not be expanded. 3 Virginia gets 14 Wright State. Virginia is firing on all cylinders. I'm not big on this Horizon League at all, especially Wright State coming out of it. Yes, Wright State actually does shoot the ball decent, and they're a decent offensive team. I think Virginia's just going to be able to completely just outmatch them on the size, on the boards, and I love that Virginia is going to get a nice, comfortable win here in their first round game. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, Wright State, like we said in the conference tournament breakdown video, don't really have a dude. They have a bunch of dudes who average like 13-ish points a game. I think Virginia rolls and shoots lights out.
Chase.
Completely agree. Virginia looked great in the ACC tournament. They've looked great over the last couple of weeks. I love their size on the inside. They could shoot it. They almost took down arguably the best team in the country this last week, and they're going to roll Wright State.
Kentucky gets a really, really tough draw against Santa Clara. This is 28 versus 35 in the Ken Palm. Santa Clara was completely underseeded. Santa Clara does struggle a little defensively in the interior, but I mean they do shoot the ball well. They're able to facilitate the interior. Kentucky does not turn people over. They don't get offensive boards that well. For whatever reason, I'm not big on this Mark Pope Kentucky team. They've played really down to their competition all year. We saw that on the road against LSU. We don't see them play well on the road at all. And I think this is a Santa Clara team that is kind of hot coming down the stretch. Played Gonzaga really close. Beat St. Mary's. I mean, I'm big on Santa Clara, and I think they get it done here as a 10 seed against this 7. And just basically because I can't buy in on Kentucky. Now, granted, if Kentucky wins this game, I think my thought process for my bracket is I think whoever wins this game actually has a chance of beating Iowa State, and I want to see Santa Clara do it. So I like Santa Clara over Kentucky. Luke, how do you see this one going?
Yeah, for whatever millions of dollars they spent on this roster, obviously they missed. And it's not all their fault because the big guy who they paid millions of dollars not playing all year just kind of screwed them like down the stretch because their inside play is not nearly as good as it could have been if Quintance would have played. And I kind of like Santa Clara. I think, like you said, Kentucky tends to play to competition. I mean, Kentucky has just looked god awful. They've looked a shell of themselves, and Santa Clara can shoot the ball. Christian Hammond's a great guard. I mean, I think he's going to probably have a good tournament if they're going to have to win this game. So I like Santa Clara and the Broncos.
Chase.
This is a trendy pick. Everybody's picking Santa Clara over Kentucky across the board. That's why I think Kentucky will actually get this one done. They're battle tested through the SEC. Granted, they have not looked great all year, but I do think that they have just a little bit more talent than Santa Clara. I mean, if you look, Santa Clara, their best win is against St. Mary's all year. And granted, that was a good win. They beat them twice, so definitely something to say for that. But at the same time, I think that this Kentucky team just has a little bit more, and they should win this matchup. So I'm going with Kentucky here.
Iowa State will kill Tennessee State. They will absolutely shut them down offensively. Luke, you agree?
Yeah, shout out Tennessee State.
No, absolutely. Shout out Tennessee State for making it.
Got a dude, but it's not enough.
Chase.
Not enough.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. The 215s this year are not as exciting as they have been in past.
Let's just go.
Yeah.
Just go. We don't need to talk about this. This is
Florida will absolutely murder whatever team shows up here.
Yeah.
And I'm very sorry to the
absolutely.
athletic departments of Prairie View A&M and Lehigh for the embarrassment.
they're gonna get a check though.
They're gonna get a check.
The first four.
It could be the most embarrassing loss in NCAA tournament history. I really do think so. This is a very pissed off Florida team. They got blown out by Vanderbilt, and they are going to take it out on whatever poor little team that comes out here in the first four.
Give Lehigh Duke.
Yeah. I think this is a horrible matchup for Clemson. This is a Clemson team that has really struggled down the stretch. Now, granted, Iowa's defense isn't necessarily elite, but their offense is, and Clemson has not been able to score. I think Iowa is able to just shoot the ball lights out from the perimeter. Clemson's just been battling injuries all year. I'm invested in Clemson basketball because my sister goes there. I think this is an absolutely terrible matchup for them, and I think Iowa actually comfortably wins this one to go out and play Florida. Luke, how do you see it?
Yeah, Carter Welling getting hurt and the ACC tournament, it did kill a bunch of Clemson's kind of mojo going into this tournament. And Clemson, another team, they just have a bunch of dudes that score 12, which is in theory great. But Bennett Sturts looked unguardable last year for Drake in this tournament, and I love him.
He looked good in the Big Ten tournament too.
Yes, he did. And
He looked real good.
I do think Iowa's going to end up winning this game. I think Bennett Sturts is going to go just berserk in this tournament.
Chase.
I do too. I think Ben Sturts is going to have a great tournament. I also think that Iowa will dominate Clemson. Iowa they're one of the best offensive teams in the country. They're going to control the pace. They're going to hit shots, and Clemson just is so injury riddled, and they just can't hit shots down the stretch either. So I think this is actually a great matchup for Iowa. Terrible matchup for Clemson. I got Iowa in this one.
Pretty upset pick would be McNeese over Vanderbilt. I don't see it deterring anyone from picking it. I love this Vandy team. They are very good in facilitating the ball. They shoot the ball very well. They've been absolutely red hot. We competed down the stretch with Arkansas in that game. SEC runner-up. The one thing you have to worry about with Vanderbilt is a size mismatch. McNeese has no size. They don't shoot the three ball well. They're going to try to play on the interior. I think that completely just gives the game to Vanderbilt. I love Vanderbilt to win big against McNeese. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Miles coming back for Vandy was huge to get back right before the conference tournament. Because if you were telling me this was Vandy, McNeese maybe before the conference tournament, I could lean a little more McNeese because Vandy was a little hit or miss somewhat down the stretch. But McNeese is literally just going to try and do a more revised version, in my opinion, of what the HBCUs do. They're going to try and turn you over. They're going to try and run. They're going to try and get layups. I just don't think this is the right matchup for McNeese this year. I think Vandy's going to end up winning.
Chase.
I completely agree. I really like Larry Johnson out of McNeese, and McNeese, to be fair, have played great basketball this entire season, but Vandy has looked really good. They looked great in the SEC tournament. Tyler Tanner and Duke Miles are such a great duo. I think they're going to outscore McNeese, and McNeese doesn't have the defense to stop them.
Take a deep breath.
Ooh.
Nebraska, the 4 seed, will play my alma mater, Chase's alma mater, and Luke's honorary alma mater, the Troy Trojans. Metrically, I think we do not match up great, especially since, according to metrics, we don't shoot the three ball well. But metrics don't know about the Red Mamba, Cooper Campbell, his brother, Kobe Campbell. We're getting Theo Sang back. Thomas Dowd's a dude. Bellamy has been playing absolutely unbelievable. This Troy team is red hot. Nebraska has never won a tournament game. I think they match up extremely well in the size. Nebraska has not looked great at all the last month they've played. I love, actually, even non-biasly, would have picked Troy in this matchup as a 4-13 upset. I think Troy is very poised to win this game. They have a tournament game under their belt last year. They returned a ton of key factors from that team, like Victor Valdez and Thomas Dowd. I love Troy in this matchup. Luke, you are the most unbiased opinion you could possibly get on this podcast between this game. What do you think about Nebraska and Troy?
Troy's going to have to hit threes, and if Troy does not hit threes, they're going to get blown out because Nebraska's probably going to hit threes. I think Thomas Dowd's got to have a big game. I think the redheaded kid's got to have a big game. I think Valdez can't look like a fat drunk out on the court, and he has to have a good game.
Amen.
So I think Troy has the ability to win this game. They're going to have to guard the three well. They're going to have to guard Sanford and Hoiberg's kid.
43rd in three-point defense, by
Yes.
the way. So, yeah.
No, they are going to have to play good defense. I just think Thomas Dowd is going to have to take over and show he's that upper echelon of your mid-major conference players if they're going to win this game, which I think they very well could. I do think they cover. I will be betting Troy to cover. I might take the money line depending on how the day's going, but I could see this going either way. I think this is a complete coin flip. This is like an
And by the way, 11:40 a.m. tip, and I think tip times matter, by the way.
Friday?
This is Thursday. This is the second game tipped off. I think that matters. We see our upsets just historically
Happen
the
early.
early afternoon segment on Thursdays.
Berman.
I love this spot for Troy. I really do. Chase talked me into it.
This-
Just keep me going here.
All right. Well, I've got a couple pointers on this. One, Nebraska has won 6 out of their last 12. They're 6-6 through their last 12 games. Not elite. Troy obviously wasn't playing their best basketball. I mean, I think we can say through February, but has completely turned it around. Ended up winning the conference their conference. Then when it looked like they were in third place heading into the last 2 weeks of the season and won their conference. Then dominated the conference tournament, quite honestly.
Even
Dominated
close.
both
None of those
games
games were close.
and they didn't even play that well. That was not Troy's peak. We've seen Troy be able to compete with San Diego State, who clearly had the size advantage on Troy. Outplayed USC, who I do believe
When USC was healthy,
USC
by
is-
the way.
Yes, that is
When USC was healthy.
healthy USC, and USC did play Nebraska pretty well this year, and so I think Troy at their best can beat Nebraska. Size is not going to be a factor in this game like we saw it be last year when Troy played Kentucky. I think that makes a big difference. Victor Valdez is going to be able to score. That's one of his. I mean, he can't shoot it that well from outside of the arc. He can get inside. He's going to get fouled. He's not going to have to go against defenders that are bigger than him. I think this plays well into Detroit guards' hands too. Cooper Campbell, Kobe Campbell, that are smaller guards. The physicality is not going to matter as much. Thomas Dowd's going to get his, but I really think what is going to help Troy out is Gerald Bellamy and Theo Sang returning. Both of them are, I mean, Theo Sang has played great all year, averaging, I think, 12 points per game. And then Gerald Bellamy, over the last couple weeks of the season, has been averaging 15 points per game. There's just a lot of guys on this team. Troy is going to have to shoot the three well. They're going to have to play like they played against San Diego State, like they played against Akron, and like they played against USC. But this is a Troy team that has beaten a lot of teams in this field. They beat Akron, who is everybody's consensus pick to beat Texas Tech. They've beaten San Diego State, who was, a first four out team. I mean, this is a really, really good Troy basketball team, and it is scary. Nebraska hasn't won a tournament game yet. All the pressure's on Nebraska. I love Troy in this matchup. Unbiased, I love Troy in this matchup.
I also love VCU to beat North Carolina in this 6-11. I think we get a little chaos here in the South region. VCU absolutely clears UNC in every offensive and defensive metric. This is a terrible matchup for North Carolina. Hubert Davis can't coach for shit anyway, and VCU is coming in red hot after winning the A-10, a tough mid-major conference to win. Love the Rams get this one done against Tar Heels. Luke, what do you think?
And I hate because we're all going to be on VCU here because especially I think me and Chase throughout even when UNC was fully healthy hate Hubert Davis. We do not think he's a good coach, and that means I am so much lower on North Carolina. I think Phil Martelli Jr. has had a really good year at VCU. I think he's a very solid coach, and if VCU is going to come and play like they have been playing, VCU should roll in this game.
Chase.
I like VCU a lot here. Obviously North Carolina's injury ridden. VCU has played really well in the A10. Won that tournament and has looked pretty convincing. So I like VCU to upset North Carolina here.
Pretty quick on this one, guys. I think Illinois completely mismatches Penn. I'm sure y'all agree. Luke nods.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree.
1,000%. I'm only excited to see if the power guy drops 40 again.
Yeah.
I really, that's all I want to see.
Yeah, I've got Illinois in this one, as is everybody else. St. Mary's, Texas A&M. This is an interesting draw for them. Texas A&M is 14th in the country in offensive possession time. St. Mary's is 324th. I think St. Mary's is absolutely going to slow the pace down, be able to shoot the ball at will from the three-point line, be able to do enough on the interior, and I think will actually handle Texas A&M, who's looked pretty, and not even pretty, has just looked straight out poor down the stretch of the SEC. I like the Gales get it done and complete a first-round West Coast Conference sweep, 3-0. Luke, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, no, I think St. Mary's should handle A&M. A&M's just looks so bad down the stretch. And I mean, granted, I love Buckyball. I think he will, this great first year that he's having there. This is just not the year they're going to win a tournament again.
Chase.
Completely agree. Texas A&M can't beat good teams. They lucked out on an easy start to the SEC schedule, pretty easy non-conference schedule in Buckyball's first year. St. Mary's is good. I think they beat Texas A&M pretty convincingly.
Houston draws Idaho. Idaho is atrocious on the defensive side of the ball, doesn't do anything great on the offensive side of the ball. I think this is an absolutely get-right game for Kelvin Sampson and the Cougars. They win by 40 against the Bengals.
Agreed.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, 7th seed.
Agreed.
And what conference are they in? It's not the big one. It's the mountain. Oh, the big
Stop-
summit. Or no,
No.
Summit. God, no, this is.
Not the Big West.
It's Montana, Northern Carolina, Montana State, Eastern Washington. It's all of
Oh
them.
my God, Northern Colorado, Montana, Big Sky.
Okay,
Let's go. Come
yeah,
on,
Okay.
bang.
Okay. Yes, they're 7th seed in the Big Sky. Don't really think this is close. Houston also beats the crap out of really bad teams.
Yes, they have. Chase.
Houston's going to dominate. I really like this Houston team, and I think that they've got a really favorable matchup to make a run in this tournament. I think they get it started against Idaho. Houston, I really like how they're built. I think that Kelvin Sampson's going to have them playing good enough defense in March, and they have the offensive scoring this year to maybe get something big done. So I love Houston in this matchup.
We're going to talk about our favorite first round matchups again. Miami, Missouri. I think this is a very good game at the 7-10. With Miami's athleticism and Missouri's ability just to win basketball games. Very excited to watch that one. Very excited to watch North Carolina VCU. I think this VCU team is very apt to make a run and maybe even to the Sweet 16. I think this North Carolina team has struggled, especially with Hubert Davis at the helm, so I like to watch this matchup. Duke Siena, I put this one out there because I think Siena's a little underrated on their seed line. I think they're going to Duke a little bit closer game than people anticipate, and I would like to see the Duke people sweat. And then Georgia St. Louis, I think, is the best 8-9 game on this seed line. I think St. Louis and Georgia complement each other very well, and I think St. Louis will be able to edge it out, but I think that'll be a very exciting game to watch. Luke, what are your top 4 matchups to watch for?
I like Bama Hofstra just strictly because there's going to be points. And who doesn't love a good old 90 to 95 tournament game where we just see two guys or two teams that are just absolutely going to light it up from 3? It's always going to be entertaining. Number 2 is going to be this Hawaii-Arkansas game because who does not love to watch Darius Acuff play basketball? Like, this man is going to be a future Memphis Grizzly, and he is so good. I mean, I've seen so many things comparing him and Derrick Rose. Like, if you, actually just look at their face composition, it's really weird. They kind of look the same. Then I got Texas Tech, Akron.
Coached by Coach Cal, too.
Oh,
so.
and yes, both for Coach Cal. They're probably 2 of the 3 best guards that he's had. Tech and Akron, I think is going to be another great matchup. I really like this Akron team. I think Akron's going to be able to shoot the ball well, and I think Tech still can shoot the ball well. It's going to be really interesting if Anderson plays or not. And I only have Illinois and Penn on here because I want to see if TJ Power will drop 40 again. He is a Duke transfer. He did play at the Power 5 level. I want to see if some stuff happens.
Chase.
Well, I appreciate you guys leaving.
Yeah, I was going to do
Nebraska
it for you.
and Troy on the board. You guys knew I was putting this on here regardless. Even if I wasn't the nephew of Scott Cross and my cousin didn't play for Troy, I still would have put this game on here. I think this is a really sneaky game, which is all the narratives going into it. Nebraska has never won a tournament game. And in that fact, I mean, I think that that is just awesome. I mean, they're must watch this weekend regardless. Troy, on the other hand, I mean, is a really sneaky good mid major team that has played well down the stretch, and I mean, this is a really good built out Troy roster that can pull an upset here. So I think this game's going to be really close and fun to watch, especially as one of the first games of the tournament. Then I got BYU versus potentially North Carolina State or Texas. I think both NC State and or Texas can give BYU a game. BYU's been very hit or miss all season, played down to competition. They've looked better as of late, but and with AJ DeBanza, but I do think that both North Carolina State and Texas match up well. UCLA UCF is going to be a really fun game on the 7-10 line. I like UCLA a lot to make a run in this tournament, but I still wouldn't count out UCF. UCF played some really good basketball in January. Granted, they've slowed down a little bit, but this is still a fun UCF team to watch. And then I've actually got UConn versus Furman. I think UConn's going to win this game, but I think this Furman team will surprise a lot of people and keep it close and give UConn a scare. UConn hasn't looked overly dominant, has not scored the ball like previous UConn teams. They're hovering around that 60-point mark. I think Furman can push them and keep this game really close.
The producer likes Louisville USF at the 611, Kansas Cal Baptist at 314.
His one was going to be my one. Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been all of them.
Mine too.
Ohio
Well,
State,
mine too,
TCU, and Kentucky Santa Clara.
Yep.
Who can win it all? These are ranked, at least for me, based on who I think can win it all, based with just not only what the team is, but what kind of path they have. I love Houston's path. I think they have a really favorable path in that South region where they could potentially get a rematch with Florida in the Elite Eight. I think Florida has looked weaker down the stretch, and I like Houston in that one. St. John's, I think, got an absolute dandy of a path, especially if Duke cannot stay healthy. They could get Duke in the Sweet 16, move on, and potentially get like UCLA, Michigan State, or UConn. I think that very boldly favors St. John's to getting a potential Final Four bid, and who knows what can happen from there. And then I think Michigan is on paper the best team in the country, and I cannot count them out, so I'm going with the Big Blue at 3. Just to go and skip on to this, Michael has Arizona, Florida, and Michigan in that order. I thought that was very interesting, especially after we take a look at his bracket, when that just does not match up with what he says at all. But Luke, go ahead.
I got Michigan at 1. I think they lost to Purdue. Like me and Will talked about this before. I'm not really one to blame refs 1,000% of the time. The officiating in that game was god awful. I think it's just kind of, they didn't really have to win that game to be a number 1 seed. They were already locked in there. I think Michigan's still the best team in the country. They've got the front court, which is a big theme and who I think can win. Florida's my number 2, another big front court. It's just a matter of fact if Lee and Flan will show up, which I think they can. Arizona, another thing is their big front court, but I don't know with Bradley. He hurt his wrist in the Big 12. I have not actually researched any of that. I think that could be a potential issue if he is not, because we saw him play and he was literally a black hole.
Yeah, he was. Chaser.
So I actually I really like this Arizona team a lot. I think they looked really well in the Big 12 tournament. They beat 2 obviously really good teams, and one Iowa State who thrashed Tech and absolutely dominated Arizona State, who Iowa State looked really good to me. Arizona came out with the win over them, and then they beat a Houston team in a really tough matchup in that championship. I like this Arizona team a lot. I think they're built really well with Bradley and Burgess. I think that they have a really easy path as well to at least get to the Final Four. So once you get in the Final Four, you know anything can happen. So
Wait till you see my bracket.
I've got Arizona. What'd you say?
Wait till you see my bracket.
Oh, I know. I know you're not gonna pick Arizona here, but I still really like this Arizona team. And I know historically they haven't been good down the stretch, but I think this Arizona team's really dominant. But also, I agree with you, Will. I think U of H has a great path to get to the championship game. This Cougar team is a team that I've picked to win the national championship since the beginning of the season, since they signed Kingston Flemings and Kristen Knack. They played some really good basketball. They played Arizona really well, and it was unfortunate they lost. Just didn't have a couple breaks go their way. But this is a team that is due to make a run. They are really good. They just haven't won some of the close games, but that can all flip in March. They get a little lucky, get a couple calls, and I think this team, coached by one of the best coaches in college basketball, and Kelvin Sampson, can make a really deep run. And then I've got Florida. I think Florida or U of H, whoever wins that west side of the bracket, can can probably make a run to the championship game just based off what I've seen. I think Florida is going to have a really easy path to the Elite Eight. I think that there's going to be some upsets that happen on that side of the bracket, and I don't know if they'll. I mean, maybe they will, but I don't know if they'll necessarily get a Vanderbilt team or or a Nebraska team that'll cause them some issues. So I think that I really would like to see Florida make a run as well, and I like this Florida team a lot. I think they have an elite front court, and I think they shoot it well. And I would love to have put like Duke, or it's crazy not seeing Duke here, but Duke's just injuries just concern me a lot, and then Michigan just the fact that they're a little banged up too, and then just how they got dominated by Purdue just really concerned me. And I know that's against what Luke thinks, but they're probably sitting there at my 4 and 5. But I really like this Florida team as well.
I'm gonna say one thing about the Michigan thing. Like, granted, they did not play well. You can't take 5 steps in the lane and lay it in. Like, that's like, I know Will's
Agreed.
probably not going to back me up here. We were talking about this before the show, and
I have no idea what he's talking about.
yeah, I know. Like, I mean, the refs were so incredibly bad, but it's okay. It wasn't in the tournament, so it doesn't really matter.
Brackets. I'm going to try to breeze through these guys. We have been here for a while. Again, I've got Duke over Siena, who will face 8 Ohio State. St. John's over Northern Iowa, who would face 4 Kansas after beat Cal Baptist. 11 South Florida over Louisville. 3 Michigan State over North Dakota State. 7 UCLA over 10 UCF, and 2 UConn over Furman. Over the West, I've got Arizona and Utah State meeting up in the round of 32. Wisconsin and Arkansas meeting up. BYU, Gonzaga, and Missouri beating Miami, facing Purdue. In the Midwest, I've got Michigan playing St. Louis in the round of 32. I've got Akron beating Texas Tech. They will face Alabama. I've got the winner of Miami, Ohio, and SMU beating Tennessee. They will face Virginia. I've got Santa Clara beating Iowa State. On the South region, I've got Florida beating the play-in winner for Prairie View or Lehigh. I've got Iowa beating Clemson, Vanderbilt beating McNeese, I've got Troy beating Nebraska. Then we have VCU beating North Carolina, Illinois beating Penn, St. Mary's beating Texas A&M, and then Houston beating Idaho. Now in the round of 32, I have Duke over Ohio State close. I have St. John's over Kansas, I think, pretty convincingly. I've got Michigan State pretty much handling South Florida. And I've got UCLA beating UConn. I think it's a good matchup for UCLA. I think they've been hot lately, and I don't think UConn's looked that good. So I've got UCLA moving on to the Sweet 16. I've got Arizona beating Utah State in a close one. I've got Arkansas beating Wisconsin. I think they got a little bit better with Acuff. I've got Gonzaga beating BYU. I'm kind of with Chase there. I don't think advances to be enough to beat this Gonzaga team. I like Purdue over Missouri. I've got Michigan over St. Louis in a very close one. I think this is really scarily close. I've got Alabama taking care of Akron. I've got Virginia over that 11 play-in, and I've got Santa Clara beating Iowa State. I think it's an Iowa State team that has kind of been hit or miss all year, and I think they're kind of due for an upset like that to see for a 2 seed. So I like Santa Clara. In my Sweet 16, I've got St. John's beating Duke. I think this is where the injuries kind of catch up to them. I think St. John's is red hot. I think Ejiofor has an absolute dandy of a game and takes them to the Elite Eight. And I've got Michigan State beating UCLA. And yes, I know UCLA beat them in the Big Ten tournament. I doubt they're going to beat them twice in a row so consecutively. So I've like Michigan State in the Elite Eight. I've got Arkansas beating Arizona. I think we're going guy for guy, and I like Darius Acuff over any Arizona guy, especially Keegan Bradley. That's a golfer, excuse me. And I've got like Arkansas in this one. I got Gonzaga over Purdue. I think Purdue, yes, has been red hot, but I think Gonzaga matches up way better in the interior. It is going to limit Kaufman-Wren and the dude that travels a lot. So I like Gonzaga to move on to the Elite Eight. I think Michigan beats Bama strictly based off they're going to feast on the interior, get a lot of offensive boards. I love that matchup for Michigan. Way more. I think that's a way easier game for Michigan than St. Louis. So I've got Michigan the Elite Eight. I've got Virginia beating Santa Clara. I think this is the end of Santa Clara's run, so I like Virginia to move on to the Elite Eight. I've got Florida beating Iowa, and when you're filling out your bracket, the way we do it is like a point system for Luke's family. I do think Florida beats Vanderbilt or Troy, so I'm going to go with Troy. Again, kind of the size thing is not going to be a factor for Troy there. I think they catch red hot in the Nebraska game. They continue that against Vanderbilt. We've seen Vanderbilt go cold, so I like Troy to move on to the Sweet 16. And then, I didn't even talk about the Sweet 16 in the South before. Illinois over VCU, and then Houston over St. Mary's, and then in the Sweet 16 in that region, I've got Florida absolutely obliterating my Troy Trojans, which would be very sad, but I think we lose by like 40. And then I've got Houston beating Illinois. Now we're down to the Elite Eight. I've got St. John's over Michigan State. I'm not a huge believer in this Michigan State team. I think they just have a very favorable path. I've got Gonzaga beating Arkansas. I think Arkansas is kind of magic Calipari's ball is going to take over at some point. Mark Few is so overdue for something to go right for this team in March Madness, barring that championship run they had. So I think they get it done here and they move to the Final Four. Michigan beats Virginia in an absolute thriller to have a rematch against Gonzaga, and then I've got Houston beating Florida in a rematch of the national championship game last year. Houston gets it back in blood. Houston way better than St. John's. I've got it moving on to the championship game. I've got Gonzaga beating Michigan strictly because Michigan beat them by 40 earlier in the year. I just don't think they can repeat that 3-point barrage that we saw from Michigan in that game. Literally could not miss from the exterior. They literally could not miss anywhere. That does not happen again. I think Gonzaga actually on paper may be a little bit better than Michigan. And especially on the interior with Graham Ike, I think he's going to have an absolute feast and gives me my absolute dream championship matchup of Houston and Gonzaga, where the University of Houston Cougars are going to be your 2026 national champions, giving Kelvin Sampson his well-deserved ring. Luke.
Now, I'm going to say this, my Final Four. I misclicked, but I'll get to there. So I got Duke beating Siena. I got Ohio State, and I'll go all the East region to the Final Four, and I'll
just go by region. That's fine.
I got Ohio State over TCU. I've got St. John's over Northern Iowa, Kansas over Cal Baptist, South Florida over Louisville. I've got Michigan State over NDSU, UCLA over USF, UConn over Furman. I've got UCLA upsetting UConn to go to the Sweet 16. I've got South Florida upsetting Michigan State to go to the Sweet 16. I've got St. John's beating Kansas. I've got Duke beating Ohio State. I've got St. John's beating Duke. I've got UCLA beating South Florida, and that is supposed to be St. John's going to the Final Four, not UCLA.
Okay.
I thought
so St. John's in the Final Four.
I changed that. Okay, I got Florida in the South beating the 16. I got Iowa beating Clemson. I got Vanderbilt beating McNeese. This game is flip-floppy, and this is my gut picks for everything, so I'm just kind of clicking here. But I got Nebraska getting their first win versus Troy, VCU over North Carolina. I've got Illinois over Penn. I've got St. Mary's over Texas A&M. I've got Houston over Idaho, and then I've got Houston to beat St. Mary's. I've got Illinois to move on over VCU. I've got Vanderbilt moving on over Nebraska, and I've got Florida to beat Iowa. I've got Florida getting their revenge against Vanderbilt, and I've got Illinois beating Houston because I think Wagner is due for one of these big explosive games where he just goes ballistic on offense. I think their offense will be able to carry them in one of these hard matchups. And then I've got Florida beating Illinois to go to the Final Four. In the West, I've got Arizona beating LIU. I've got Utah State beating Villanova. I've got Wisconsin beating High Point, Arkansas beating Hawaii. I've got BYU beating the play-in as of now. I've got Gonzaga beating Kennesaw State. I've got Miami to beat Missouri. I've got Purdue beating Queens. I have Purdue beating Miami. I have Gonzaga beating BYU. I have Arkansas in a very close game. I think this will be a very close game. It is going to be very high scoring, but I've got Arkansas beating Wisconsin. I've got Arizona ultimately beating Utah State. I've got Arkansas beating Arizona. I think Acuff is an absolute dude, as we saw in the SEC tournament. And then I've got Purdue beating Gonzaga. I just think they're kind of on a roll. They've had those 4 seniors that have been there forever, and I think they're going to kind of make a little bit of a run this year. But I ultimately have Arkansas beating Purdue to go to the Final Four. I have Michigan beating the 16 seed, whoever it might be. I've got St. Louis to beat Georgia. I've got Akron to beat Texas Tech. I am manifesting Hofstra to beat Bama. I've got right now Tennessee to beat the play-in. I've got Virginia to beat Wright State. I've got Santa Clara to beat Kentucky. Iowa State to beat the 15. I've got Iowa State moving on versus Santa Clara. I've got Virginia moving on versus Tennessee. I've got Akron going to the Sweet 16 to ultimately play Michigan. I've got Michigan going to the Elite 8. I've got Iowa State beating Virginia. And then I've got Michigan in the Final Four where they take on Arkansas. They beat Arkansas to match them up against Florida after Florida beats St. John's, the battle of the front courts, and I think Michigan will be your national champion.
Chaser, good job.
Jesus.
Oh, sorry. The producer has Duke over Siena, Ohio State over TCU.
I vote for the producer, time-wise. Read the Final Four, and let's go.
All right, time-wise. The producer has St. John's and Houston in his Final Four, Arizona and Michigan, and he has Houston playing Arizona in the national championship, and he has the University of Houston Cougars, who he did not list on his top 3 teams that can win the national championship, winning the national championship. Chase, how do you see it?
All right. Well, we're gonna start off with we'll start off with the East region. I've got Duke beating Siena. I've got TCU beating Ohio State in a close one. I got St. John's smoking Northern Iowa. I got Kansas beating Cal Baptist. South Florida beating Louisville, and then I've got Michigan State beating North Dakota State. UCLA beating UCF in a close one, and I got UConn eking out one against Furman. Then in the round of 32 for the East region, I've got Duke beating TCU in a very tight game. I've got St. John's beating Kansas. I've got Michigan State beating South Florida. I've got UCLA beating UConn. And then in the Sweet 16, I've got Duke beating St. John's, and I've got Michigan State beating UCLA in a really tight matchup. Then in the Elite Eight, I've got Duke making it back to the Final Four, beating Michigan State. Then in the South region, I've got Florida beating Prairie View or Lehigh big. I've got Iowa beating Clemson. I've got Vanderbilt beating McNeese. I've got Troy beating Nebraska. I've got VCU beating North Carolina. Illinois dominating Penn. St. Mary's dominating Texas A&M, and I got Houston rolling big against Idaho. In the round of 32, I've got Florida over Iowa, Troy over Vanderbilt, Illinois over VCU, Houston over St. Mary's. Then in the Sweet 16, I've got Florida over Troy. I've got Houston over Illinois. I do think that Houston, Illinois is going to be an absolute banger of a Sweet 16 game, but I think Houston kind of prevails. And then in Florida, then I've got a rematch of last year's national championship in the Elite Eight, Florida versus Houston. I've got Houston beating Florida and going to the Final Four. In the West, I have Arizona dominating Long Island. I've got Utah State beating Villanova, High Point beating Wisconsin, Arkansas beating Hawaii. I've got the winner of Texas, North Carolina State beating BYU. I've got Gonzaga beating Kennesaw State. I've got Miami beating Missouri, Purdue beating Queens. And then in the round of 32, I've got Arizona beating Utah State in a really tight one. Arkansas thrashing High Point. I've actually got Texas and North Carolina State, the winner of that, beating Gonzaga. I just am not sold on the Zags yet this season, like unlike Will. I've got Purdue beating Miami, and then in the Elite Eight, I've got Arizona beating Arkansas. I do think this is going to be one of the matchups of the tournament, and I think it's going to probably end up being Arizona winning by like a buzzer beater or something in the last couple minutes. Then I've got Purdue with one of the easiest paths ever to the Elite Eight, beating Texas or NC State. Then I've got Arizona beating Purdue to go to the Final Four. And then in the Midwest, I've got Michigan beating UMBC Howard. I've got Georgia actually up. I guess it would be an upset now. I guess I got Georgia beating St. Louis, Akron upsetting Texas Tech. I got Alabama beating Hofstra, Tennessee over Miami, Ohio, or SMU. I've got Virginia dominating Wright State, Kentucky over Santa Clara, and Iowa State over Tennessee State. In the round of 32, I've got Michigan dominating Georgia. Alabama will handle Akron. Virginia is going to beat Tennessee big, and then I've got Iowa State beating Kentucky. This is the only region I think is super chalky. The top four teams are just a lot better than the rest of the pack. I've got actually Michigan beating Alabama, though. I think their run will finally end at the hands of Michigan. I've got Iowa State beating Virginia in another banger game. I think this one could go either way, and then I think the winner of Iowa State, Virginia will ultimately beat Michigan to go to that Final Four. In my Final Four, I've got Duke versus Houston and another rematch of last year's semifinals, and I've got Arizona versus Iowa State. I think Houston beats Duke just for the reason that Duke is a little bit banged up and they will already have had to go through a gauntlet to get to this point. I really like this Houston team. Kelvin Sampson deserves to get to this final. I like this Houston team a lot. And then on the other side, I've actually got Arizona beating Iowa State. I really do like this Iowa State team, but Arizona has consistently beaten Iowa State this year. They just beat them in the Big 12 tournament. I like this Arizona team a lot. They're 2-1 against Iowa State. I think they get it done again to set up a Big 12 final, a rematch of the Big 12 championship. I've got Arizona beating Houston again to win the national championship.
Well, that concludes our bracket preview, a long one at that. Best of the weekend, me and Chase went on a Dallas trip. We lost 7-2 as in the Oilers, but it was a very fun time. Sat like 3 rows back from the ice. It was very cool, awesome experiment. experience. Chuck's 21st birthday was this Saturday. We got absolutely thrashed on the golf course. It turned into a very eventful day and evening, very fun. And then everybody was in town. My brother, girlfriend, my sister's now in town. That's just been wonderful. Luke, what were your best things that happened this weekend?
World Baseball Classic. USA won an absolute defensive battle. There is no reason that we should have lost because we spent a lot of money on our defense budget. Um, but it was a great game. I mean, it sucks that it ended on that bad of a call, but the dude had called that strike like at least 4 or 5 times before. Still, USA deserved the win. Going on to the finals to probably play Italy and get a little revenge game. Then I'm gonna piggyback off Will's. I went to golf. I just kind of rode around, drove Charlie. I will definitely do that again at some point because it was really fun. I mean, I got really drunk. Charlie lost his keys. Charlie lost his phone. Charlie was just losing everything on the course. But it was a great time. It was awesome. Charlie's 21st. It was a great Saturday. And then gambling. I actually was up like $150 this weekend after not hitting a bet for a week straight. So I had a college baseball bet. I hit an NBA bet. I hit college basketball. It was great. I got some money for the tournament. So I'm stoked.
Chase.
Well, obviously, I got to talk about me and Will's trip to Dallas Thursday and Friday last week. We got to see the Stars. Phenomenal tickets. Got treated to a great hotel stay at the Omni Hotel, which is also an elite hotel in Dallas. So thank you, Mr. Spain, for that.
That was a hell of
Stars
a
played
time.
great. It was a hell of a time. It was a great time. We got great food. Overall, really fun. And then this last weekend, right after coming back to Dallas, instead of going home, I drove straight from Dallas to Galveston, which Galveston, as you know, is not the nicest beach in the world, but it was a good time with my family. Got to see my grandparents. And then finally, Manchester United are pretty much guaranteed to make Champions League now. They got a massive win over Aston Villa this past Sunday. Won 3-1, looked great. Vibes are high. Carrick in. Really happy to be a Man United fan, and I'm super excited for March Madness this week.
All right, guys, that concludes episode 50 of Swiss Army Sports, our bracket preview. Tune in. I don't even know what we'll cover next time, but tune in. And
Probably be
it's
more
been a long one. Probably be more basketball. Have a good night.